What is up? RebBearShark here for the Real Trace Llamas. Today we got a new deck guide for you. This Doflamingo deck took me from middle of the pack at my locals all the way to the finals, and it was the most fun I've had playing this game. I absolutely love it. I love Dofi's mechanics. Let's get into it. Start off, you got your leader card here, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Doflamingo, when you attach 2 Don to him when he's attacking, you can rest a Don and then play a 7 Warlords of the Sea character card with a cost of 4 or less from your deck by revealing it. It comes in rested. This is the mechanic that makes this character and this leader absolutely insane. You get to play cards for really cheap, right? You get a 7k swing, plus that you lose 1 more Don. You rest 1 Don to play a 4 cost. Really crazy. I love it a lot. I am going to play this deck some more when I get some changes to it. First things first, we're going to go into the big engines of this deck. We've got 4 copies of Perona and 4 copies of the 3-cost Don Quixote Doflamingo. Perona's ability on play lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, rearrange them in any order, and place them at the top or bottom. This is super important for Doflamingo, right? Because like we said, you get to reveal the top card and play it if it's a Warlord, 7 Warlords of the Sea. With a cost of 4 or less. So you use Perona, you look at your hand, you kind of go, I want to draw this one next turn. I want to play this one the following turn. I want to draw this the next turn, play this the following turn. So you kind of get rolling. And the 3-cost blocker does the same thing. Looks at the top 5, gets you rearrange them. He's also a blocker, and he can be played from Doflamingo's ability. So Perona cannot, she's only Thriller Bark. But Doflamingo, you can get your Peronas ready right when you're about to run out of not knowing what your hand's coming up. You set up this Doflamingo as the card that gets played on the turn. So really crazy. This engine is really important. We're going to go into some of the protection in the deck here. We are running 4 copies of the 1-cost Trafalgar Law. I think it's super important in any deck right now to have a cheap chop blocker. There are definitely cards that can KO them easily, like Nico Robin, or most of the cards in purple have those nice abilities, like the Kings of the World and the Kaidos. But really just having that 1-cost blocker, especially late game, to kind of just throw out and say, all right, deal with it, or I'm going to use it to block a very powerful attack. We're running 4 copies of Alvida. This card exists solely for counter. I have never thought to use her ability in this deck. I'm running Alvida because I have at least 4 copies of it, and I have the box topper. Her ability could be useful if I really needed it to, more than like Bon Clay. But really, she's just there for the support of it all, to be able to counter out. Now into some of our 7 Warlords that we will be hoping to find on the drop. So we have 4 copies of the 3-cost Boa Hancock. It's a blocker with trigger that lets you play the card and you pull it from your life area. The only reason I'm running this card, not the other boa, is because I don't have the other boa. I did just recently purchase it to kind of bump this deck up, but that boa is very expensive, and I wanted to see if this deck was worth it for me, so I did play this 3-cost. It was okay. The biggest problem is it only has 1,000 power, so Nico Robin can bounce it, and then you play it rested, and it doesn't have the same effects, right? It's just a blocker. It doesn't have the really great block. On block, draw 1, like the 4-cost Boa. We have the 4-cost Marshall D. Teach. His incredible. On play, you get to bounce a card with 3 or less cost to the player's hand. So you're running in there Doflamingo, you're swinging for 7, and you pull Teach off the top. You bounce their blocker back to the hand, they have nothing to block with. So it's really great to get those cheap blockers out, as well as some of the more frustrating cards like Nico Robin. Keep her off for another turn so you can keep your blockers up or use them. Then we have Dracula Mihawk. Mihawk is here partially for his 2k counter, but also because his ability is really useful. You get to draw 2 cards and trash a card, or trash 2 cards from your hand when you attack with him with 1 Don. 6k attack. It's nice to kind of get more cards in and out of your hand if you don't know what's coming up next, and kind of get some cards that are dead in the hand out, right? There aren't that many dead cards in this game. There are a few, and some of them are just because they're events that I'm running. And the last 4 cost we 7 Warlords, we have Gecko Moria. Moria's ability is that he can pick up a Thriller Bark or 7 Warlords of the Sea character from your trash area, or the cost of 4 or less. This is great to get you back high value cards. If you really desperately need a Perona, you can get this one off the flip because you didn't have a Doflamingo coming up to do some more rearranging, or you didn't have Sables. Another great card. Also, if you're looking to get more Teaches back, get your Mihawk back to have 2k count in your hand, you can really play it very strategically. So going forward, we have some of the more bigger bodies that are going to have some more interesting effects, as well as, a little bit harder to play, right? Because they're going to be situational, but they're so important. So to start off, running 2 copies of the 5-cost Crocodile. The thing I love about this Crocodile is he's a 6k blocker, so he does require Dawn to get over for most characters. On top of that, with a Dawn on him, when you block, you can bounce a card with a cost of 2 or less to the bottom of your opponent's deck. So again, this is another great blocker threat. I was playing a guy who was running Zoro, and he just didn't want to lose his blocker, so he wouldn't attack me. He just refused to swing for me at all because he knew I'd just block it with Croc and bounce it to the bottom of his deck, and then he would not have his blocker. Really interesting card. I like it a lot. I'm thinking about keeping it in. I don't see it in a lot of deck profiles. I typically see the other Crocodile or some other blocker body, something like that. We have 4 of the man himself, Joker, Don Quixote Doflamingo. This card is one of my favorites in the game. It does suffer in the red matchup, but is great anything else. It lets you put a 7-cost card back in the hand of the player. Again, the only thing this runs into is that if you're playing red and they've got Luffy out in the field or Zoro out in the field, you can't really bounce them. I mean, you can, right, and force them to play the Dawn next turn to kind of mill the Dawn. But at this point, you're usually close to 10, or they're close to 10. So the odds of that really paying out the way you want it to isn't going to work great. I do love it, though, for any other matchup. Green, bounce the Okiku, which is really value high. I am about to start running a red and green deck that's going to be including Basil Hawkins, so you can bounce him out. Things like that cards that get way more value would be nice to bounce. Bounce a lot of the lower cost purple things, some of the blockers, the Kings, both of them. So there's lots of options here to bounce. And if you're playing the mirror, you can bounce a Doflamingo, but that guy's kind of silly. But you can bounce like a Crocodile blocker or something, or anything that doesn't have on play. My rule of thumb is I typically avoid bouncing cards that have on play abilities, just because I don't want them to get that ability again. And then we have the Powerhouse, who is here to deal big damage and handle big cards. This is Mihawk. This is the card you want to play when your opponent is running red and has Luffy on the field or Zoro. Because similar to Doflamingo's ability, you get to bounce a 7-cost character or less. But instead of going back to the hand, this goes to the bottom of the deck. This is super useful. This is what has kept me alive in red. I get to 9. I can finally play it. Put it out, get rid of one of their rush characters that they will never get to see again for the rest of the game, and then I get 9,000 power to swing with. This card is great to use in the green matchup as well to go over that 8-cost kid, because it's already 1,000 higher, so you don't have to spend a lot of Dawn to get it to the point where you feel confident that it's going to leave the hand, right? It's a wonderful card. I love it. Every time I see it, I'm so excited. I'm running 3 of because running 4 of seems a little excessive. 4 of Doflamingo might go down to 3 later. Just kind of tweaking the deck in the future. That is all the characters we are running, and we are now moving into our events. Events in this deck, as with all blue, are very helpful. Start off with the GOAT. Love Mellow. Love Beam. Mellow Marrow. Whatever you want to call it. Your leader or one of your characters gains plus 4k, which is, you need it, right? Sometimes you need that 9k. And if you have 3 less cards, you get to draw. So this is great to have in your hand to just get ready and kind of figure out. You may want to even just counter a +1 if you think you need to go that high, and then use Level Up Beam to be able to draw. Helps you cycle through your deck, especially if you know what's coming, right? You have those Peronas, you have those Doflamingos, and you have this idea of what's coming next in my deck. I am running 1 copy of Overheat. It is a 2 cost event. You get the plus 4,000 again, and you get to take a 3 or less cost character back to the owner's hand. On trigger, it allows you to bounce a 4 cost. This card is okay. It's probably leaving the deck, I'll be honest. It doesn't have that much value, and I'd rather have Love Beam, or even honestly, I'd probably rather like 2 Spada. So the other card that may get bounced from this profile, but is still kind of nice, is Sables. Return a character with a cost of 7 or less back to the owner's hand. The trigger lets you do that. This is nice to have when early game you're being threatened and you happen to have a Sables and you're not up to 7 Dawn yet, but you're being threatened by like a Nico Robin or an Okiku, and you have plays that you need to make. You want to get another character out on the field, and you don't want to play Doflamingo yet, or you don't want to play Mihawk yet, because you want to kind of run through that hand that you set up with Perona. Sables is nice to kind of have. I may keep this in the deck, I may not. Like I said, I didn't see any use for it, and every time I've played on the simulator, I haven't seen much use for it. But it is kind of nice to be a little bit cheaper to bounce those cards that you just don't want on the field. And especially like if you're going up against green and they happen to pull out the Kid Blocker, I think that's really a great time to use it as well. The last 2 events we are running are 2 Desert Spada. This card is great value. You get plus 2,000 because it's a 1 cost event counter, but you do get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck. And again, if you haven't found the Peronas, for some reason you haven't found the Doflamingos, even though you're running 4 of them, you can just counter with this and get to see those top 3 cards. And it's also another, a smart play if you're in a situation where like, okay, I really want to figure out what I'm going to get next turn so I can get more counter into my hand, or you have Love Beam sitting on the side and you're ready to be like, okay, I'm going to draw the next little bit. You play Spada to look at those cards, rearrange them, maybe get a 2K counter back in your hand, things like that. It does have a trigger, which lets you draw 2 cards, trash 1. The draw engine is always nice in One Piece, right? You don't get that many opportunities to draw, so it's really nice to have. So that is the deck profile. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I went from consistently playing middle of the pack in my local tournaments to making it to the finals. I did lose to a Zoro, but I'll be honest, it was the first match where I didn't mulligan, and I should have. That's the moral of the story. I should have mulliganed. This deck it is a hard mulligan to get Perona out. If you don't see Perona in your opening hand, you mulligan. Because this card lets you do everything. Whether you are of the strategy where you want to do play Perona, next turn I'm going to draw, and then use Doflamingo's ability, so I'm going to get a draw play on that turn. Or alternatively, the strategy I've been seeing, and I've toyed with this a little bit, is using Perona to stack your deck instead of draw, play, draw. Stacking it in draw, play, draw, play. And then on your second turn, instead of using Doflamingo's ability, you stack 3 or 4 Dawn on Perona and swing for life. That's really nice in a pressure matchup where you're playing maybe red or a 4-cost leader, and you just want to put the pressure on them. You don't see in your first 5 cards a really great card. Say you've got 2 playable Teaches, or you have like a Law, which is you can play on Doflamingo's effect, but it's kind of a waste because you could just rest that 1 Dawn yourself when you pull it into your hand to play it. So it's some thought here. This deck is one of the things I love the most about One Piece, because they have taken the time to look at the leaders and say, what does this person do? Right? Doflamingo has the string fruit, and his whole character is pulling the strings behind the scenes and being that shadow puppeteer, right? And that's what you're doing with this deck. You are being the shadow puppeteer by pulling cards, looking at them, playing them rested, and the on-play effects happen before the attack finishes. So you play Teach, boom, I've been thinking 7 steps ahead of you, and now your blockers are gone, and now you have to take this 7K because you have 1 card in your hand. It's all that scheming, and I love that, and I love that they've put the effort into making these characters make sense. Like I said, this deck is my absolute favorite I've played so far. I can't wait to play more of it. I can't wait to get those pieces that I think are going to really just flesh this out and make it even better. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and a comment letting us know what you think we should try next. What leader should I go into and make a deck out of in one piece? Subscribe, join the Alpaca, and ring that bell to be notified when we put out more content that will be incredibly average like this. We are looking forward to making more TCG content. I hope you've seen on the channel lately. We've been running a lot of that. Super excited. Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, One Piece, Pokemon. We are all in it. It is a great time to be here. Thanks for watching. Be your best. Try your best. Just like us. See ya.